Hello, welcome back to The Grimm Reader. I come to you today with another episode of the Grimm Chronicles. I think it might be episode 20. 19 or 20. I think it's 20. So, talking about my reading week, which was still a little bit not what I would like it to be. I was, for reasons that I cannot get into, a little bit unable to read in as focused a manner as I would have liked. So for that reason, I have not, for the first time in quite a while, I haven't finished a book. I mean, there are probably weeks with recognitions where I hadn't, but I thought I would finish one book, but I just didn't. So let's talk about my reading. I have not made a lot of progress, but I, still am considering myself as reading it, and a Karenina. I've only made, I sort of concentrated on something else this week. So hopefully I'll get back into this. I have to figure out a plan, like probably just assign myself a certain amount of pages a day, and we'll see how that goes. Now we're heading into summer activities, which of course is less busy because I'm not teaching, but there's still quite a bit going on. This upcoming week is the week of doctor's appointments, which is just, for example, I have to go to the eye doctor, and it may sound like I'm making excuses, but I actually think part of my reading, my lack of reading, has to do with, I think I need a stronger prescription. My eyes are I can tell. It happened already once where they really got quite bad, and it really affected my reading. It was harder for me to read, and when that happens, you just read less, I think. And I think it's happening again. I think I need a stronger prescription. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's what's going on. So that's one of the appointments, and then I have a couple of other appointments. And we're in the beginning phase of undertaking a big house project, which is to get rid of our awful carpet, which we never really have liked, and we should have gotten rid of a long time ago. But it will involve basically moving house and moving us all somewhere. My plan, we'll see if it works, is to move with the cats to an Airbnb while the actual work is being done. The problem there, as you know, with any kind of household project is, can they really do it in a very tight time frame so that I can just come back? We shall see. I'll keep you posted on household stuff. But that's a big thing. And for one thing, it involves a lot of book moving, because that's the main thing we have. And I've already started a little bit, and I'm going to cull a lot of books. We're going to get rid of quite a few books. Why not? This is the time to do it. So, Moving on to my other reads, I did start the book that I'm reviewing, but I'm still very much in the beginning. I'm only in it's because his life is so complicated, and I won't get into it too much this week because this is going to be a project. I'm talking about Lafcadio Hearn, the very, very complicated man who was Greek. He was born in Greece, came to the States, did all kinds of interesting things here, including in Cincinnati, close to this is my main town. It's the closest biggest city is what I'm getting at. We're in a small town. And then eventually went to Japan and really kind of became Japanese. Let me show you the picture of him in here, which I really, really love. A portrait of him. This is our man, Lafcadio Hearn. And what's interesting about him, I don't know that much, but he was, as it says here on the back, one of 19th century's best known writers. His name celebrated alongside those of Mark Twain and Robert Louis Stevenson. And yet these days he's not a household name like those two. At least Twain, Stevenson to a lesser degree, but still. Not that many people know about Hearn, and he's absolutely fascinating. And so some indulgences. This book is a compilation of some of his fairy tales, which I'll talk more about, but it lists 4 other works that it is taking these from. And I went off and found them all for actually relatively low amounts of money on thrift books. And so I'm going to have a whole slew of Lafcadio Hearn books coming in. I guess it's a project. I guess it's something I'm committing myself to. It's connected to my love of all things Japanese, and in the back of my mind, or even not even so much in the back, is a trip to Japan and even learning the language, although we'll see about that. I have a lot going on. I'm a bit of a dilettante. I'll dabble in things, but the Japanese stuff is of interest to me. So we'll see how that goes. I'll show you the books that come in when they do. But I haven't gotten very far. So I'm just kind of giving you a sneak peek of things to come in terms of what I'm going to be talking about on these upcoming episodes of the Grimm Chronicles. Let's see, what else have I been reading? So the main thing that I wanted to finish this week was The Good Soldier by Madox Ford. Madox Ford, born Joseph Leopold Ford Herman Madox Huffer, 1873 to 1939. What an interesting life. Fascinating fellow, fascinating English-German person, English, very, very English, but with his German background. And so a little bit of biography, I don't want to get into too much, but one thing that was fascinating to me is his connection to artists. So on the one hand, his paternal grandfather, for the German people among us here, will know that, so Johann Hermann Hofer, his paternal grandfather, was the first to publish Annette von Droste-Hülshoff, a very, very famous 19th century German woman writer who a lot of school kids know because she wrote a very, very famous novella, one of the most famous novellas in German literature, called Die Judenbuche, the Jews, what's Buche? Is it beech? Beech. I think it's a beech tree. Really great, sort of gothic, very interesting in terms of morality. She's actually a really interesting writer, and I know a little bit about her poetry, which is also amazing. She has some connections to the Grimms and people I work on, not that much, but I know a little bit about Annette. Anyway, but that's just tangential. The person I'm most interested in is his maternal grandfather. So his mother's father was Ford Madox Brown. And Ford Madox Brown is a very, very famous painter connected to he's a Pre-Raphaelite painter. And I don't know how, tell me if you are familiar with the Pre-Raphaelites. This is definitely not Pre-Raphaelite, this painting. This is Macke. This is a German painting. August Macke. I love Macke. He's a German expressionist. I love German expressionist paintings. Of course I do, you know. The Grimm reader loves the German. But I do also love the Pre-Raphaelites. Actually, there's a German section of them too, but I won't talk about them today. The Nazarenes, Nazarene. But the Pre-Raphaelites, you know, I mean, I don't know how well known they are on the booktube. But I will insert a painting of his here that I actually am so glad that I was able to see when I was doing a conference paper back in the day when I did conference papers in Manchester. Well, the conference was in Sheffield, and then I went to Manchester and stayed there. But his famous painting called Work, it's an amazing painting. I really do like his style. My favorite Pre-Raphaelite is William Millais. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but I think so. But Madox Brown is really interesting. His use of color is amazing. It's very sort of deliberately kind of, there's a flatness to it, like it lacks, and his use, the way he lights his paintings is sort of almost artificial, but it makes them really, really, draws your eye to them in a really interesting way. Fascinating painter. And so this was Madox Ford's grandfather. And his name was, as I said, was Hofer, but he made it less German sounding for obvious reasons. Now, he himself was also a really, really interesting character, fascinating life. Lots of interesting relationships with women, I have to say. And so let's get into the story a little bit, even though I'm not finished. I'm about maybe halfway, a little less than halfway. Yeah, a little less than halfway. So don't read this if you are not interested in the lifestyles of the very, very wealthy around the turn of the century, because it is sort of, as I said once in a very, very early video of mine, dripping with privilege, talking about an Edith Wharton novel. So it's really kind of this rarefied atmosphere, which is not to everyone's liking. The style is very interesting. It's sort of, there's echoes of other people in it. I mean, it's been a long time since I read Henry James, but there's a little bit of that. It's good. It's very good. It's very literary, his narrator. So the person is talking about, so in terms of plot, I won't say too much about, it's basically a foursome. So two couples, and we also have this narrator sort of very much observing the other people in the foursome. So one of the husbands looking at the relationships of the other three people in a really, really interesting way. I've heard people call him unreliable. So, and I'm sort of sort of already reading as to what's unreliable about his narration, which I'm kind of getting glimpses of, but I'm not sure yet. So, keep you posted on that. The style is great. It's because it's so internal as to one person's view of things. That's something I am drawn to. I really like, a sort of, even if they are unreliable. If I like what they're depicting and telling me about, I don't care how unreliable they are. It's enjoyable to read. And he just had this funny anecdote about seeing a cow come up and tip another cow into a river, which is sort of cruel. There's he even alludes to the cruelty aspect of it, but it was hilarious to see this cow all with its legs in the air in the water, and it's really well described. And one thing I notice about his descriptions is he focuses on color a lot, and how light influences color and makes you see things, makes things seem to have a completely different color than they actually do. So that kind of hints at his relationship to art and artistry. I'm just wondering, I'm just seeing this letter that he wrote in the beginning, and I'm wondering if that's one of the women, but he's given him his own last name, so I'm not sure about that. I'll have to figure it out. So interesting relationship to women. And so it's about adultery or relationships, and also just people. I mean, in a certain sense, at the beginning when I started and I was reading Anna Karenina at the same time, it's not unsimilar in its sort of somewhat sad, cynical view of people, and just kind of the unfoldings of how people get into situations that they're not really happy with. And if that's, I mean, that's kind of general, but yeah. And for some reason, the fact that it's so internal also reminded me of Poe. Maybe the hints at it being an unreliable narrator did that too. And, Telltale Heart and all those stories. So kind of its time in that sense. I'm trying to think if I have examples for you. No, I don't. I think I'll save that to next week since I'm not finished with it. And what's so interesting about it, yeah, so the two couples, one couple is an American couple, wealthy American John Dowell. He's the narrator, and he's kind of, and they enter into this relationship with a British couple who are also well off, except that the husband of the other couple, he's what I would call a cad, and he is not good with money, and so his wife has to kind of like extricate him from many affairs. He's a cad, and also the money thing too, and so that's where we're at. It says here, even on the back here, it says the archetypal unreliable narrator. Okay, sure. A masterpiece of early modernism and a virtuous performance of literary skill. Yeah, no, it's very good. It's very good. It is a little bit rarefied. It's about a bunch of really, really rich people and their problems. One thing that I just have to, this is just a biographical aside, I thought it was hilarious, and it reminded me a little bit of something that I know about Ezra Pound. So apparently he was married to or had affairs with all these different women. One of them was really, two of them are artists. Stella Bowen, an Australian artist who was much younger than him, and then also a Polish-born artist from New York whose Wikipedia page is really, really extensive, called Janice Biala. And her stuff is really great. I really love her paintings. So yeah, if you're interested in art, there's these interesting connections of Ford, Madox Ford to these artists. But the last sentence here says he spent his last years teaching at Olivet College in Olivet, Michigan, which is really close to my college, Albion. And we kind of, to be honest, looked down a little bit on Olivet. It had even a lower, reputation. It's just extremely small. I don't think they have German anymore. I mean, it had less, it's a very small place. And I was just shocked to see that this very, very, but on the other hand, another thing that kind of interested me is apparently he never attended university. All of his erudition or his reading came from just his surroundings and everything, and hanging out with very smart people. And but it says he graduated from University College School in London and never attended university, and yet he got to teach at I guess back in the day, this is in the 30s. He came over to America to teach at a college. I have a feeling, I mean, I don't really know much, but it sounds like that's almost like, definitely going down as a way to make money, probably to situate yourself. Probably to make money is what I'm thinking. Have a steady source of income. which most of us need to do. We need to work to do that, to have that. And so the thing that reminds me of Ezra Pound, and I think he was friends with Ezra Pound. Yeah, I think I remember reading that, is that Ezra Pound, the sort of, I don't know that much about his work, but I do know that he dabbled with fascistic leanings, taught at a college that I actually did teach at in Indiana, Wabash College, which Wabash College's claim to fame is that it's all male. Yeah, it's one of the few non-army, non-military all-male schools left in America. It was an interesting experience. I mean, it was fine. Okay, it was just boys in the class, but I mean, I'm glad I don't teach there anymore, but it wasn't bad. And some of the students were really good. Some of them should probably not have been in college. And so they had to be very, very mindful of their incoming class and getting enough kids to want to go there. But they're also, and this is a terrible pun, but I will go with it anyway, very well endowed. Because a lot of their alums go off to have careers in business or whatever, they pump money back into the college. So it's an interesting place, a small college in Indiana. Anyway, so that's where I'm at with Fort Madox Ford. And I guess that's where I'm at with all my reading. I have not gotten to Annie Dillard. For some reason, I'm just putting that off. And the other thing, and I'll put the cover here. So the new Audible that I started, even though I know a couple of weeks ago I said, I don't need to start the next one. What do? I went and started the next episode of the Malazan one. It's called Deaths. What's it called? Oh, I've forgotten. It's on the phone. The Deaths. Something to do with Death Gates. Death Gates. Gardens of the Moon was number 1. What's number 2? I should look at these. Gardens of the Moon. Second one, Malazan. I should type in. I'm trying to find it too. Book of the Fallen. Wikipedia. Sorry, guys. Books. Gosh, where is it? It's so complicated. I can't even find number 2. Here it is. Sorry, guys. Deadhouse Gates is number 2, and it's 34 hours long. It's gonna take me forever, and I can already tell. Sometimes, like today, I went back to the beginning of chapter 1 just because I take it in at a very sort of. I take it in and try and get the gist of what's going on, but there's already so much going on, or at least enough to where I think I'm almost at the point where I'm going to order the book so I can go back and look up names and things. But there's something very appealing about falling back into a very complicated world where the writing is good, the characterization is good, it's a little earnest, it's typical fantasy, but it's kind of, I like it. And I hope that one day I will go back to O'Brien. I have very eclectic tastes. On the one hand, I listen to Patrick O'Brien and enjoy that. And then on the other hand, I listen to fantasy and I enjoy that too. So yeah, it's just me. And then I read the other things. So yeah, just today, I finally started catching up with my Substacks, trying to go in and read them. And I read a German one. She's actually also written a novel that I started and haven't finished. Her name is Berit Glanz. She's and her Substack's really interesting because she talks about things like memes and how memes have happened. And she was talking about stuff that I had really know nothing about, but I felt like, now I know about this meme to do with Fortnite and games and all stuff I really have no clue. Songs, and so it's like a gateway into what the young people are listening to or talking about. So that was really useful. And then the other Substacks that I read was also very great. Dan Jones, the historian that I've talked about, and I did get I downloaded a sample of one of his books because I really would like to try them. And his Substack was all about Richard III, and I'd really kind of skimmed through it. I didn't really read it that closely, but he was sort of reflecting on the popularity of Richard III, and why are people so obsessed with him, and there's a society for him, and yeah, it was interesting. So yeah, Substack's great too. All just these literary people writing about, it's basically their blogs that they put out whenever they want to, and you can actually pay the money if you want to too. I think that's where I'm at. I don't know in terms of other stuff. Well, I'm doing a lot with my stationery, which is such a time because you've been thinking planning, and I have a new Instagram for the planners. And, you know, I might make a planning video, but they're very different from, you know, it's a whole different genre of booktube, is the planners who are just crazy with the planning. You know, my weeks, and this is my Hobonichi Tetsuo that I got. It's not a book, so I won't talk about it too much. So that's going on too, but that's sort of a little bit separate from the stationery stuff. Let me know how your weeks are going and how your reading's going. I've been slowly getting back into watching some booktube. I'm a little behind the ones you know, the people I watch regularly and the ones I watch regularly. But I hope to keep up, and I hope everyone's doing well. And please comment and say hi. And the light's a little bit strange, but yeah, I will talk to you very soon. And thank you all for watching. And bye bye.